I have a passion and I want to help a million people work happy and talk about mental health in the workplace. I've not always had happy jobs. I haven't always worked happy, even though I'm the work happy guy now. There are days that absolutely go sideways on me, but I know now how to recover and to recoup. And so every month, I want to share the knowledge that I've learned with people to help me reach that goal and to help make the world a better place because people have helped me along the way and I want to help other people. So today, I just wanted to go over quickly how do we overcome loneliness? I've been lonely before, not today. I've got a lot of friends, but when I do start to feel lonely because I work out of my house, out of this room, I now know what to do. How do I get out of that rut and how do I reach out to people and help other people? So I always bring this up. I know, Jim, you've seen this before, but I had the opportunity, Vicky, a couple of times to work with Robin Williams when I was doing stand-up comedy. And one of my favorite quotes of his is, "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always." And that has really resonated with me, especially going through COVID, whether that's I'm in the grocery line at Safeway and grandma is paying with coins or a check and I'm frustrated. I'm like, come on, let's go. Or, somebody cuts me off in traffic and then waves at me with just one finger. You can do the math on that one. But we have to we don't know what's going on in other people's, right? So if we have the right mindset in saying, you know what, that person, maybe someone kicked their cat or something else is going on, but just try and remember to always be kind because we don't know what other people are going through. And we would want the same thing, right? When we're having those crappy days or not feeling our best. So here is what loneliness looks like. I believe Jim was at this conference. I was out Halifax,
I
out on
was.
the
Yeah.
out on the East Coast in Canada. And the day before, I was taking some time for my own mental health. And there's a place out there called the Bay of Fundy, which is known for the biggest tidal change in the world. I think it's 12 feet. And so I wanted to go out. So I jumped in my car. It was about an hour and a half drive. Got out of the car, was taking some pictures. And I turned around and I saw this guy standing there. And his name is Steve. When I introduced myself, I said, "Hey, I'm Greg." He's like, "I'm Steve from Halifax." Um, and I found out that he was very, very lonely. He doesn't look like a guy that has a lot of friends, but he's a really interesting dude. And so I didn't have to say anything to him. I could have just walked on, but something in me just thought, I'll see how he's doing. So I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, man, I love your hat. I'm a huge San Francisco 45 Niner fan, and um, my two favorite teams are the 49ers and anyone playing the Dallas Cowboys because I hate Dallas." And we had a laugh and we had a conversation. And the first thing I noticed about Steve was that he was stuttering, had a really bad stuttering problem. And when he was talking to me, he wasn't looking me in the face. He was kind of looking down at the ground and around and shifting. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go on this 20-minute walk with Steve. And so I said, "Hey, dude, I'm going for a walk. You want to go?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "It'd be great to have someone to go with." So we started walking. I said, "Tell me your story." And then I just listened. And this guy talked for 20 minutes. I found out that his family history. And I said, "Is this the first time you've been out here?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "It's actually the first time I've been out of my house in probably the last 3 months." Come to find out that he lost his job. And 10 days after he lost his job, his mother had passed away. So he was left with his house all alone. He was depressed. And the only friend that he had, they would get together and watch hockey games and drink beer. That was his only joy in 3 months. And so I was talking to him, and then he asked about me and what I did. And I said, "Well, I help people work happy and talk to people about mental health." And I said, "If you're struggling, I go to therapy. I go to a counselor once a month, whether I need to talk to Keith or not, but he's there for me." And 5, 6 years ago, I would never go to a counselor because I'm a man and I've got it together. And now I know that that's not true. And so I was sharing this with Steve, and he said, "You know what? I would never go to a counselor. I was raised to be, we're men. We suck it up. Boys don't cry." I said, "Yeah, I get that, Steve. I was too, right? But I've learned that going and talking to a professional, someone else who knows how to overcome these stressors in our lives, is very, very helpful." So we were finishing up the walk, and at the end, I said, "Hey, have you ever thought about going to see a counselor?" Again, he goes, "You know what, Greg?" He goes, I think I might. He goes, "I'm going to talk to my doctor tomorrow, and I'll see if I can get some counseling." And the really cool thing about meeting Steve from Halifax was that he was lonely, and I had driven an hour and a half by myself. I knew nobody else, but I made a connection with a guy who was struggling, and he helped me as much as I helped him. Right? I learned a lesson that we should always talk to people. We never know what they're going through, and it was very cathartic for me. And I remember sitting in the car afterwards. I kind of got emotional. I was just kind of replaying the whole thing in my head. And the thing that stood out to me was that all of us can be lonely. It doesn't matter. You can't see what loneliness looks like, right? If we break an arm, you can see a cast, or someone's going through cancer, they might not have hair. So there's different things, but loneliness you really can't see. And so I made an extra special effort since this to reach out to people more. And the other thing that I noticed at the end, Steve was no longer stuttering. He felt like I was a friend. He could talk to me. I would listen. I wouldn't judge him. And so I talked to a friend of mine who's a speech therapist, and he said that's true. When people are fearful or don't know someone, stuttering can be one of the problems where they're not confident, and so they stutter. And so the lesson here is whether we're lonely or we see other people that might be lonely, let's reach out and help them. And here are some of the alarming stats on loneliness that I found. Cigna did research. 61% of adults are lonely. That's 6 out of 10, right? So if you have 100 people working for your organization, 61, well, 6.1. I don't know how you get 6.1 people, but 6 people are lonely, right? They're struggling with it. They're going through the same thing that a lot of us do, and we forget that if I'm lonely, we tend to withdraw and not reach out. But when we do, we find other people that, oh yeah, no, I don't have a lot of friends either. We can form bonds and do that. The World Health Organization recently came out with a study, and they've likened loneliness, extreme loneliness, to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. We all know how good cigarettes are for us, right? It can cause all sorts of problems in our lives, but that's the effects of loneliness. When people who are lonely, chronically lonely, and don't get out or don't ask for help or don't find a group that they drive with, it can be very damaging for our health and physical and mental. And then finally, there's a 32% increase in stroke for people who are lonely, right? Because when we're lonely, our body tries and fights that, and it's the same kind of thing. It gives us information so we can fight what what's going on in our body, and that can cause more strokes. And that's from the American Heart Association. So there's a lot of research now that is showing us that loneliness is a big problem. And I talk, I train, and I coach people, and this comes up over and over again. I just feel so lonely. I feel like nobody else knows what I'm going through. And what I have found in talking to people, that's not true. Because when we do connect with people, we form a bond, and we don't have to be best friends, but it really helps us with loneliness. The one time I was extremely lonely, I took a year at a university. I went and taught English in a tiny religious school in an island, a remote island. It's halfway between Hawaii and Australia. So I was down there for 9 months with other university students. And this was back in the day when we didn't have the internet. We found out that Michael Jordan had retired the first time 3 weeks after he retired, because that's when the newspaper came. It came once a month to the island. So it was just we got to, phone calls. I don't know if you guys remember this, Vicky or Jim, but phone call, the calling card, right? You had to dial in an 800 number and then
Yep.
20-digit PIN number to
Yep.
talk to my dad for 10 cents a minute. So it was before all that. And I got out there, I was a year late or a year late, a month late after everybody. And I only knew one person. One of my friends suggested I go out and join them, which I did. But I got out there, and I remember the first 3 or 4 weeks, I was alone. I mean, there were people around, but I just had the one friend, and I was really struggling. And so one night I was out for a walk and I ran into my buddy Cam. We're still friends. I mean, this was 30 years ago, right? His kids and my kid go to the same university now, and every time they're in town, we connect. He taught me all about scuba diving. I taught him how to laugh, not how to laugh, but I got him into humor and whatnot. And it was very cathartic for me because I was able to form a bond with these other college kids, and they're still lifelong friends. Three of the people that were on that island now live in Walla Walla. We're back in the same town, and every
Wow.
once in a while, our wives will get together, or a group of us will get together, and that's how we overcome loneliness, by reaching out. Whether I'm lonely, I need to reach out, or if I sense other people at work, right? Either at Valley Transit or where you work, Jim, right? I mean, you've got a lot
Yeah.
of people are walking around and we have no idea until we reach out and connect with them. What I've learned here's some of the risk factors to see in other people, right? At the job, if they don't have any close relationships and at work or in their lives, right? We tend to be lonely, we tend to withdraw, or we tend to get on social media and going, oh, I'll get on social media and then I won't be lonely anymore. Well, that has not worked for most people, right?
Yeah.
The younger people. Rachel's 19 and she's on social media, and if somebody doesn't like a post or says a negative thing, that doesn't help loneliness, right? It withdraws us even more. Other risk factors for loneliness are losing a job or moving. One of the factors in people who enjoy their jobs, or if they have one or two really good friends at work, somebody that they can go to coffee with, somebody that they can confide in or ask for help with projects or in their lives, or if someone's just moved. I have a friend here in town. Tom and I became friends during COVID. We golf together twice a week, but because of his job and his kids, he's moving to Colorado, and I'm going to lose him, right? So I'm going to have to put in extra effort, phone calls, going to visit, or whatnot. But when people move, they become more lonely because they have to start everything over again: their work, relationships, their friends, everything else. And then also, too, having a child or losing a loved one. Rachel's a step kid, so I've never had a child. But when people have kids, right? Like if you have coworkers or people that work with you, if they have a kid, there's a lot of time and energy that's put into that child, and everything else kind of goes away. And so sometimes people can be really lonely, even though they're in love with their kid and each other. It can be lonely for those people, or losing a loved one. I lost my dad 5 weeks ago, and it really sucks. And there's times that I sit by myself and I cry. But what I've learned is I can reach out to people. And I've got two friends that one lost their dad and one lost their mom in the last year. And so again, I've reached out to those people, and Jim, we've talked about this as well too, right? But when you
Yeah.
lose a loved one, it can feel really lonely. Or if you hear of someone, that has lost someone, I know back in the day, I wouldn't know what to say. It would feel awkward and weird. But now I
Mhm.
know I've lost enough people in my life that everybody else is hurting just as much as I am, right? Maybe in a different way. But when we
Yeah.
reach out, we can take care of that loneliness and help those people as well. One of the things that I've learned, one of the cool things during COVID, um, and for you, Vicky, Jim already knows this, but my stepdaughter lost her dad to suicide 6 years ago. And so I really invested in suicide prevention. I took a couple of CPR courses for mental health, how to spot it, how to talk to people, that kind of thing, because I needed to. I didn't know how to talk about mental health. I did not know how to talk about suicide. And most of my conversations now with my friends, at the end, I will like, how is your headspace? How are you doing mentally? Because it's so important. And when you ask that question, it lets the other person know, oh, it's okay to talk about mental health and let your guard down a bit. So through all of that, we came up with a small group. It's here in town. On the fourth Sunday of every month, we go to the Christian Aid Center and we cook and serve dinner for the homeless people here in Walla Walla. And it's been absolutely great. My buddies Andre, Scott, and Liam, they're all great people. We all come from different walks of life. And just we don't even talk about mental health. It just kind of comes up. A couple of guys have gone to AA because of it. They've reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm struggling with alcohol. What should I do?" And I said, "Well, you need to go talk to George, who's in the group, who's been sober for 25 years." And so it's really cool. But when we serve and when we volunteer and we find a tribe that are like us, the loneliness goes away, right? If I need to go golfing, I can call Scott. If I have a question about parenting, I can call Andre or talk to them. So if we are lonely, we need to get outside, take that extra effort. I know it takes some work, but find something that you're into. And then finally, three things. I always say this: reach out, reach out, reach out. We have to for ourselves. If I'm feeling lonely, or someone else that we might see is feeling lonely. And the story that resonates with me in talking to people and how we can change lives. I attended a conference 3 years ago. I met a gentleman named Scott, a really nice guy. He found out that I was a speaker. He brought me to his organization, and I gave my talk about how to work happy. And we kept in touch online and helping each other out and whatnot. Well, they'd asked me to come back to that conference in November, last November, and I spoke at the conference. And afterwards, Scott and I were having dinner, and he said, "You know what? Thanks again for your message, Greg. I really appreciate it." And I said, "Well, Scott, it's the same message. Was there anything different or anything you appreciated? Anything I can improve on?" And he said, "No, the message of reach out." And I said, "Well, that's good to hear." And then he went quiet, and he said, "I don't know how to tell you this, Greg, so I'm just going to say it." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "6 weeks ago, I had a plan to end my life." He said, "I left work, got in my truck, I went and bought a pistol, and between the gun store and my favorite fishing hole where I was going to end my life, your message, reach out, kept on playing in my head." And he goes, "I don't know what it was or why, but he said, I pulled my car over. I called my sister. We talked for an hour. She came and got me, and now I'm in therapy." So that was the first time I'd ever cried over a burger. But that's the power of reaching out, whether we do it for ourselves or we see somebody lonely, right? Maybe it's a new person at work. They haven't had friends yet. Maybe they've lost someone. Maybe they just don't fit in like Steve from Halifax. But when we reach out and talk to each other, it does amazing things for our mental health, our physical health, and it gets us out of loneliness. The other thing is self-care and mindfulness. Before COVID, I thought meditation and breathing and reading for no reason was hippy dippy. But I've learned that it helps me to reset myself and fill me up so that I can go and serve other people and help other people. So if you haven't tried, meditation or breathing, I'm happy to give you resources on that as well too. And then finally, like I just talked about with Men in the Middle, volunteer, find your group and serve others. And when I started volunteering at the Christian Aid Center, I was like, "Oh, I'm doing it because I'm going to do a good thing and I'm going to get brownie points." But I think it's helped me more than the people that had been there, right? Because you start talking to these people who don't have much and they're homeless and they're so grateful and appreciative that we've served them a meal. And it's just absolutely amazing. And the loneliness just kind of runs away. So I'm out of stuff to say, which is impressive, right, Jim?
I just wanted to make two comments if I can.
Absolutely.
The first one is I figured that the percentage of people that are lonely was high. I had no idea it was that high. Like I thought it might
Yeah.
be 25 or 30%. So that really surprises me.
Yeah.
And then the other comment I wanted to make, because I was there right after you had seen Steve and had that walk with him, and I just remember you had flown all night or flown really early in the morning. You hardly had any sleep, and then you did that drive, and then to take
Yeah.
the time to spend with Steve, that was really something. So I'm really proud of you for that.
Well, thanks, man. It's cool, and I'm glad that he's allowed me to share that story because it's powerful. It's not about me; it's the message, right? And
Yeah.
if we do talk to people, we have no idea what other people are going back to Robin Williams' quote. So